The snow was the kind that made everything quiet. No crunch, no wind. Just white and breath. A soldier walked past the park, boots heavy from a different kind of winter, the kind that never melts, even when you're home. Then he saw him. A boy. Alone on the swing. Small boots not touching the ground. A red scarf, frayed at the edge. The child didn't cry. Didn't move. Just watched the clouds like they might carry someone back. He whispered, not to the man, but to the sky. My dad was a soldier. But he didn't come back. The soldier stopped breathing. The scarf, it was his. His knees bent, not by choice, but memory. Snow fell between them. Not cold. Just still. The boy swung once, gently. The metal chains creaked like an old door opening. A door he thought had closed forever. A red scarf. A whisper. And a heartbeat that forgot how to lie. He hadn't spoken his son's name in 3 years. Not out loud. Not where it could echo. Not since the courthouse steps, where his ex-wife clutched the boy's hand like he was a suitcase being taken. And all the soldier had was silence, a duffel bag, and orders that wouldn't wait. They'd said deployment like it meant erasure. They'd called his absence abandonment. But he remembered every second, the boy's soft curls, the way he used to squeeze one finger instead of his whole hand, how he always fell asleep mid-sentence. He remembered the last time. Wrapping the red scarf around the boy's neck. Kissing his temple. I'll come back for you, he'd said. But the war was long. The letters came back unopened. Her number changed. Her lawyer said, he's moved on. And eventually, he believed them. Stopped writing. Stopped hoping. Now the snow pressed into his boots like guilt made physical. And there, just feet away, the boy on the swing. He didn't recognize him, not fully. He'd grown longer, thinner. But the eyes, they were mirrors. Too old. Too quiet. The soldier stepped forward once, then stopped. What could he say? Eli, it's me. No. He didn't even know if the boy still used that name. And then the woman came, tired, face drawn, bundled in a coat too big for her frame. She touched the boy's shoulder. He didn't flinch, but he didn't smile either. They walked away slowly. The boy looked back once. Right through him. The soldier didn't move. Didn't blink. Just stared at the swing still swaying. Like time trying to make up its mind. That night, in his rented room, he found the red scarf folded in his pocket. Not the one on the boy. The other one. The twin he had kept. Frayed in the same place. He held it like a photograph. Like a wound. In his head, he heard the boy again. That voice, small, steady. My dad was a soldier. But he didn't come back. He ran a hand through his face. His stubble scratched his palm. He had come back. But he hadn't arrived. Not really. Not yet. The next morning, he went back. Same park. Same silence. A little more frost around the edges of the world. The soldier sat on the far bench, posture loose but eyes sharp, like he hadn't really unlearned patrol. The boy was already there, on the same swing. This time, he pushed himself gently, boots dragging trails in the powdered snow. No one else was around. He waited. Minutes passed like winters. Then he stood, walked over slowly, not trying to hide his footsteps. The boy turned his head but didn't react. Just stared, quiet and unafraid. You cold? The soldier asked. The boy shrugged. My scarf's warm. He sat down on the neighboring swing. The chains creaked again. The same sound from yesterday, low, metallic, mournful. "What's your name?" he asked, softly. There was a pause. Then, "Eli." The swing might as well have stopped moving. Eli. He remembered tracing the letters on a card before the boy could even read them. Remembered whispering it against his forehead the night he left. Eli. He swallowed hard. That's a good name. The boy looked at him, as if weighing something behind those old eyes. What's yours? He hesitated. Luke, he said. Not, Dad. Not yet. The boy nodded, then looked back toward the trees. There were no birds. Just frost on the branches. How old are you? Luke asked. Almost 8. Almost. He'd left when the boy was barely 3. 5 years vanished into fog. Do you come here a lot? When I can, Eli said. Sometimes she's busy. She? My aunt. She works at night. I like it better here. Luke nodded slowly. You draw, don't you? Eli turned his head. A spark of suspicion. How do you know? I saw your drawing. In the trash near the bench. The one with the bridge. Eli looked down at his feet. That one wasn't good. It was honest, Luke said. Sometimes, honest is more important. The boy's fingers fidgeted on the swing chain. Then softly, like air being let out of a balloon. I think my dad forgot me. Luke looked away. There were no right words. Only true ones. He wanted to reach out. Place a hand on the boy's shoulder. Say something that could build back 5 winters of absence. Instead, he just said, I don't think that's possible. Eli looked at him, curious now, not convinced, but listening. Then the aunt's voice called out, sharp and distant. Eli stood, brushing snow off his pants. He didn't say goodbye. Just walked away. Red scarf trailing behind like a quiet accusation. Luke sat alone on the swing. The chain still warm where Eli had held it. The internet cafe smelled like burnt coffee and old breath. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, making everything feel too bright for the kind of search he was doing. Luke sat in the far corner, the computer's glow pale on his face. Custody records. Death notices. Change of guardianship. The words blurred until one line caught his eye, like a whisper shouted across time. Amelia Grace Winters. Deceased. Car accident. 2 years ago. His breath left in fragments. He leaned back in the plastic chair, staring at the ceiling. The room didn't spin, it just fell silent. She was gone. The woman he'd once loved. The woman who had hated him by the end. The mother of the boy he'd left behind. And no one told him. No call. No letter. Just a digital line under a government heading. He read on. The boy had been placed with Rachel and Winters, her younger sister. Temporary guardianship. Then permanent. The woman from the park. The one who looked at Eli with weariness instead of warmth. Luke rubbed his face hard, trying to wake something inside him. All this time, he thought he'd been erased. Maybe he had. But part of him had also just stopped showing up. Stopped trying. Stopped fighting. War was simpler. Out there, you knew your enemy. At home, it was paper cuts that bled. He clicked through outdated contact numbers until he found a name. Winters, R.A. Landline. No address listed. His fingers hovered over his phone. Dialed. 1 ring. 2. 3. He hung up. What would he say? Hi, remember me? I'm the ghost who left. He couldn't do it. Not yet. Instead, he sat there, elbows on the keyboard, forehead resting on his fists. Eli had thought his father forgot him. And now, Luke wasn't sure he was wrong. He closed the browser window. Walked out into the late afternoon cold. The sun was low, touching rooftops like a fading photograph. He pulled out the scarf from his coat pocket, the one he kept folded all these years. The red had dulled, but the shape held. So had the promise. He passed by a storefront. The glass reflected a man he barely recognized. Tired eyes. Bent shoulders. Fingers twitching with a memory they couldn't hold. The soldier was gone. What remained was something quieter. Slower. More afraid of a child's rejection than a bullet's path. He opened his mouth once, then closed it. Inside his chest, a voice whispered. You lost the right to be his father. But another voice answered, softer. Then earn it back. He walked toward the park again. Because some ghosts don't haunt. They wait. He didn't sleep much after that. Just sat by the motel window, scarf in hand, eyes fixed on a world that didn't notice him anymore. At dusk, he went walking again. Back to the quiet neighborhood where snow softened every step. Each porch light blinked on like stars with nowhere to be. Then he saw it. Second floor. Third window from the left. A flicker. Small. Steady. A flashlight beam sweeping side to side, once, twice. He stopped beneath the tree line. Watched it repeat. Like a signal. Like Morse code made by memory. And there, behind the glass, was Eli. Tiny silhouette. Chin propped on hands. Eyes searching the dark. Luke leaned against the tree. Breath steaming out in silence. He used to do that. Back when Eli was just learning to speak in full sentences, he'd play with a flashlight at night. Said he was sending light to the sky so Daddy could find home. Now here he was, still sending signals, to someone. To no one. To a father he didn't know was watching from below. Luke's knees bent slightly. Not out of pain, but habit, the soldier's crouch. He waited. After a while, the light went off. Curtains closed. The house dimmed into stillness. He stayed there a while longer, just listening. To the hush of snow. To the pulse in his wrist. To the ache of a boy who hadn't stopped hoping. The next night, it happened again. Same time. Same beam. And again the night after that. Luke began walking by more often, timing his steps to those quiet moments. He never approached. Never knocked. Just stood beneath that window like a lighthouse facing land, praying the light would find him back. Sometimes he saw Eli in the daytime, too, trudging to the school bus, head down. Alone at the swing. Never with other kids. Not unfriendly. Just apart. Like a boy caught between pages of a book no one finished reading. Luke started carrying a notebook. Wrote in it during the long hours. Little things. Moments. Memories. Regrets. Drawings, even. Stick figures. A bridge. Two hands reaching. He never sent them. Just kept them folded inside his coat. Warm against his heart. A quiet proof that something was still alive there. Each night, he stood beneath that window. And each night, the light would blink through once more. Not asking for rescue. Just making sure the dark knew he was still here. It was a Wednesday. Cold enough that the breath stuck to your collar, and the snow turned sharp around the edges. Luke hadn't meant to follow. Not exactly. He'd only been walking. Same route, same hour. The school bell rang in the distance like a distant memory. Eli walked alone. A slow shuffle through slush, backpack too big for his frame. No skipping. No detours. Just motion, as if walking was an obligation. Luke watched from across the street, behind a row of brittle hedges. And that's when he saw it. Eli paused by a trash bin outside the apartment complex. He looked around, checked his sleeve, then pulled something from his bag. A folded paper. Crumpled once. Unfolded again. Held to his chest for half a breath, then dropped into the bin. Then he walked on. Gone before Luke could blink. The soldier waited until no one was watching. Crossed the street. Reached into the bin like a man retrieving something sacred. It was a drawing. On wide-ruled notebook paper. Pencil smudged, lines hard. A boy. A man. A broken bridge between them. The man had no face. The boy had eyes that were too wide, too sad. Underneath, in shaky writing. I think he forgot me. Luke sat down on the cold bench beside the bin, elbows on knees, the paper trembling in his hands. He studied the lines. The soldier's helmet. The boy's small hands, reaching. The bridge between them, snapped in two. No water beneath. Just white space. Emptiness. He closed his eyes. He could still hear it, the morning he left. Eli in pajamas, holding his toy flashlight like a shield. Come back soon, okay, he had said. Luke had kissed his hair and said, always. And then years passed like smoke. This drawing, was all that remained of that promise. The soldier folded the paper gently. Slipped it into the notebook inside his coat. It didn't belong in the trash. It belonged in the heart of a man who had lost the right to be called Dad, but not the capacity to feel like one. He sat there for a long time. Snow fell again. Light, like dust. The kind that doesn't land. Just lingers. Across the street, the window glowed faintly. And in that light, he swore he saw a silhouette again. Small. Waiting. He didn't wave. Didn't move. Just whispered to the dark. I didn't forget you. I just forgot how to find you. Then he stood. Tomorrow, he would knock. Or at least try. He stood in front of the door for what felt like an hour. 3rd floor. Unit 3B. The numbers were peeling, crooked, like no one had bothered to straighten them in years. He'd climbed the stairs slowly, each step heavier than the last. By the time he reached the landing, his heart felt louder than his footsteps. He raised his hand. Let it hover in front of the door. But he didn't knock. Instead, he stared at the worn doormat, the kind with the word home faded into invisibility. Was it still that? For Eli? The door opened suddenly. Rachel stood there, coat slung over one arm, phone in hand. She froze when she saw him. Her face didn't show shock. Just something colder. Recognition. You shouldn't be here, she said flatly. Luke nodded once. I know. She stepped outside, pulled the door behind her, shielding whatever sound might come from inside. You've got 10 seconds, she said. I saw him, Luke began. In the park. I didn't plan it. I swear. Rachel crossed her arms. You saw him. And what? Now you want to be a father again? Luke flinched at that. It was too close. Too deserved. I never stopped being his father, he said quietly. I stopped knowing how. Rachel shook her head, tired and hard. Amelia wanted you gone. You signed the papers. You vanished. I didn't vanish, he whispered. I was buried. She stared at him for a long moment. Her face softened, just barely. He doesn't know you, she said. Not really. And the little he remembers? It's fog. Luke nodded again. Then let me show him I'm more than fog. Rachel's jaw clenched. She looked away. He's finally sleeping again, she said. After months of waking up calling for someone who never answered. Luke blinked hard. His throat tightened. I'm not asking for custody, he said. Not even forgiveness. I need to see him. As me. Not some stranger in a park. She studied him. You hurt him without even being here, she said. The words hit deep. Because they were true. I know, he said. Silence stood between them like a locked door. Then, behind the walls, a sound, soft feet. A quiet voice calling her name. Rachel looked back at the door, then at him. You want to help, she said. Then don't knock again. Let him stay whole. And she turned. Went back inside. Closed the door without a slam, but with something heavier. Luke stood there, staring at the crooked 3B. His hand dropped to his side. The scarf in his coat felt heavier somehow. He didn't knock again. He just whispered, almost to the door. I didn't come to take him. I came to remember how to be his. Then the hallway swallowed him whole, the flashlight beam was there again. Same window. Same hour. Luke had stopped walking. He didn't move toward it anymore. He just stood across the street, hands in his pockets, watching from the shadow between two parked cars. Each sweep of light felt like a question. Each pause, an echo. He no longer wondered if it was for him. He knew. One night, the light didn't blink. He waited anyway. An hour. Maybe more. Then he turned and walked toward the park, like a tide pulling him back to shore. There he was. Eli. On the swing. Again. Same scarf. Same quiet. But this time. Luke didn't hesitate. He sat down beside him on the second swing. No greeting. Just metal groaning under weight. The air was thick with frost. You could taste it. After a while, Eli spoke first. You came back. Luke turned his head slightly. I didn't think you'd remember me. I don't, Eli said. But you came back anyway. Luke nodded. The boy kicked at the snow. You were at the window. Luke's mouth opened, but the truth didn't come out. Only a softer lie. I walk a lot. Eli looked up. I was trying to find someone. With the light. Did it work? The boy shrugged. Kind of. You're here. Luke looked out over the frozen playground. The plastic slide glistened under the streetlight. Empty. Untouched. I used to know a boy like you, he said after a pause. He liked flashlights too. Why? He said it helped him feel brave in the dark. Eli was quiet for a long time. Then. My mom told me my dad went away for something important. But he never came back. Luke stared straight ahead. What do you think happened to him? He asked carefully. Eli's voice was soft. Maybe he forgot. Maybe he got lost. Maybe he just didn't want to come back. Luke's hands tightened around the chain. Or maybe, he said slowly, he wanted to, but didn't know how. Eli looked up at him again. Those eyes, not accusing. Just tired. I think about him sometimes, the boy whispered. At night. I draw him how I remember. Luke nodded. You're good at drawing, he said. You saw it? The one with the bridge? Eli nodded. Luke's voice barely held. That bridge, it can be rebuilt. You know that, right? Eli didn't answer. But he didn't walk away either. Instead, he reached into his pocket, pulled out the flashlight. handed it to Luke. "Your turn," he said. Luke took it. His fingers shook slightly. He clicked it on. Pointed the beam into the sky. Side to side. Once. Twice. And for the first time in years, the dark blinked back. The first letter was just a drawing. 2 figures on a swing set. One smaller. One taller. The bridge between them wasn't broken this time. It was under construction, beams sketched in soft pencil, one side reaching toward the other. Luke didn't sign it. Didn't dare. He left it folded under a smooth stone on the park bench where Eli always sat. By the next day, it was gone. The next letter came a week later. Another drawing, this one of a flashlight in a window, beams cutting through darkness. And below, 5 simple words. "I see you every night." Luke left that one too. Same place. No signature. Just truth. They continued like that. Words without names. Feelings without confrontation. In the quiet exchange, something old stirred back to life, not just in Eli, but in Luke too. The shame softened. The fear dulled. What remained was the shape of something once lost, now flickering again like a distant flame. And Eli. Eli changed. Luke saw it in the way he walked. Lighter. Head a little higher. Swinging his backpack by one strap like boys do when they forget to be afraid. He started drawing again. Left some of them behind for the stranger who wasn't. One sketch was a soldier sitting beneath a tree. A small boy leaning on his side. Luke kept that one. But not everyone welcomed the fire being rekindled. Rachel found the letters. Luke saw her waiting for him one afternoon near the park bench. Her arms crossed tight, her face drawn sharper than usual. She didn't yell. Didn't even raise her voice. "You think sending letters fixes 5 years," she said, holding one of the notes like it was evidence. "No," Luke replied. "But maybe it starts something that can." She exhaled hard, shaking her head. "You're waking him up for nothing. Making him hope." "He never stopped hoping," Luke said gently. "He was sending light into the dark long before I ever showed up." Her eyes narrowed. "And what if you disappear again?" Luke's jaw clenched. "Then I'll be the monster he already thinks I am." She looked away for a long moment. Then, softer, he started smiling again. "You know that?" Luke didn't answer. He couldn't. Rachel folded the letter, more carefully this time. Pressed it into his chest. "I'm not ready to forgive you," she said. "But maybe, he is." She walked away. Luke stood alone again. The letter in his hand. That night, the flashlight blinked once. Twice. And for the first time, he walked up to the house, not to knock, but just to stand beneath the light. Eli opened the curtain. Just a crack. Their eyes met. No words. Just 2 silhouettes, one tall, one small. The light stayed on all night. It was the kind of morning that tasted like winter, sharp air, sunlight caught in the trees like threadbare gold. Luke stood near the back of the school auditorium, hands in pockets, pressed into the shadows. He hadn't planned to be there. But the flyer had been posted outside the apartment building. Winter Showcase, 2nd grade class, lights in the dark. The title alone had felt too familiar. Too much like a whisper aimed right at him. So he came. Sat in the back row. Hood down. Heart steady, but too loud in his ears. The curtains pulled back. Children filed onto the stage in slow, uncertain lines. Cardboard stars dangling from the ceiling. A string of flickering white lights looped across the backdrop like constellations. And then, there he was. Eli. In a paper crown. A flashlight clutched in one hand. Eyes scanning the crowd like a sailor searching the sea. Luke didn't move. Didn't breathe. Then the boy froze. Their eyes met, across heads and lights and years of silence. Just for a second. Then Eli turned and ran, not off the stage, but behind it. Disappeared into the wings like a shadow retreating from dawn. Gasps murmured through the audience. A teacher rushed after him. Luke stood slowly. He didn't follow. Just walked out into the hall, leaned against the cold brick wall near the water fountain. A few minutes later, the door creaked open. Eli stepped out. No crown. No flashlight. Just himself. He walked over, small shoes squeaking. Luke crouched down, met his eyes. "I didn't mean to scare you," Luke said. "You didn't," Eli replied softly. Luke's voice was a whisper. "Then why'd you run?" The boy looked at the floor. Toes nudging the edge of the carpet. "I didn't know what to do." Luke nodded slowly. "Me neither." Eli glanced up. "Why do you look like me?" A pause. Not long. But enough. Luke looked into his son's eyes, and didn't hide anymore. "Because I'm your father." The hallway held its breath. Eli didn't cry. Didn't yell. He just stared. Luke continued, voice low. "I left when you were little. I thought I'd come back and fix everything. But I waited too long." "Why?" "Because I thought maybe you'd be better off without me." Eli's brow furrowed. "You were wrong." Luke's throat closed. He nodded. "I was." They stood there in silence. Then, slowly, Eli reached into his pocket. Pulled out a folded piece of paper. Opened it. A drawing. 2 stick figures. Side by side. A new bridge. And on the edge of the paper, scrawled in pencil. He came back. Luke knelt and took the picture, fingers trembling. "Do I still have time to be your dad?" he asked. Eli looked up at him. "You already are." They met again the next evening, not by accident this time. The park was mostly empty. Just the faint crunch of someone shoveling snow across the street, and the quiet hum of a sky too heavy to snow again. Luke waited on the swing. Eli came without a word. Sat beside him like they'd been doing it forever. The soldier glanced at the boy, his son, and felt something he hadn't in years, stillness. Not peace, not yet. But the absence of running. "I used to sit here," Luke said. "When I didn't know what else to do." Eli didn't respond. Just watched his boots draw lines in the frost. Luke let the silence stretch between them. It felt like trust. Finally, Eli spoke. "Why didn't you fight for me?" Luke turned his head slowly. The question didn't sting, it hollowed. "I wanted to," he said. "At first, I wrote letters. Made calls. Hired a lawyer. But your mom, she didn't want me around. She told me you left," Eli said, voice quiet. "I did," Luke whispered. "But not the way she said. I left for war. I thought I'd come back and everything would be the same. It wasn't." He looked out over the empty playground. The same bench. The same swing. The same ache. "I gave up too soon," Luke admitted. "I let the silence grow until it sounded like permission." Eli was quiet for a long time. "You thought I'd forget you?" Luke nodded. "Or hate me. Or both." "I didn't," Eli said. "I just got tired of waiting." A wind moved through the trees then, not loud, but enough to carry old regrets like leaves across the frozen grass. Luke reached into his coat pocket. Pulled out something small, soft. The other scarf. The one he had kept all those years. "I don't know if this fits anymore," he said, offering it out. Eli took it in both hands. Turned it over, examining the frayed edges like archaeologists do with fossils. "I remember this," he said. Luke nodded. "You wore the other one." Eli looked up. "I still have it." They sat like that for a while, father and son, each holding a thread of the same memory. Then Eli reached over, without words, and wrapped the scarf around Luke's neck. Not perfectly. Not tightly. But deliberately. Luke's eyes stung in the cold. Not from wind. Not from weather. "I don't know how to be a dad," he said. "You're doing it now," Eli replied. The swing chains creaked. Somewhere, a dog barked in the distance. But between them, only stillness. And 2 red scarves. One old. One kept. Both warm again. The courtroom came later. The paperwork even later than that. But what mattered most, what truly shifted everything, began in smaller places. Rachel's porch. The school counselor's office. The quiet corners of a coffee shop where Luke waited for supervised visits to begin. It started with time. Not declarations. Not arguments. Just presence. Eli sat across from him, legs swinging under the chair, drawing pictures while Luke listened to every scratch of pencil like it was a voice he'd forgotten how to hear. Sometimes they spoke. Sometimes they didn't. And when the social worker asked if he felt safe with Luke, Eli had simply said, "He knows when I'm quiet." It was enough. Rachel wasn't quick to agree. She hovered in thresholds, watched like a hawk, arms crossed like a shield. But her eyes, they softened with each passing week. Not into forgiveness, but understanding. One afternoon, after Luke helped Eli with a school project, Rachel met him at the door. "Do you still want custody?" she asked. Luke looked at his son packing away markers, humming softly to himself. "I want to be his dad," he said. "However he'll let me." She studied him for a long time. "You're different," she said. "Before, you were just trying to survive. Now I want to stay," he finished. Therapy came next. Joint sessions. Long silences. A few tears. Mostly from Luke. He told Eli about the nightmares. The guilt. The war that had followed him home even when the world said it was over. Eli listened the way children do, with too much empathy for a heart so young. Sometimes he drew the stories instead. A sand-colored world. A soldier kneeling beside a boy. The flashlight always glowing in the corner. And slowly, the bridge in their drawings was no longer broken. By spring, a judge signed the motion to grant shared custody. Not full. Not yet. But enough. Enough for weekends. For school pickups. For burnt pancakes on Sunday mornings. Eli moved into Luke's small apartment one night a week to start. His room wasn't perfect, just a mattress, a lamp, a shelf of books Luke remembered loving as a child. But when Eli walked in and saw a framed drawing of their swing set taped to the wall, he smiled. "You kept it," he said. "Always," Luke whispered. That night, they sat by the window. Same flashlight. Same quiet beam sweeping the dark. Only this time, it wasn't a signal for rescue. It was a tradition. A shared language. The next morning, Eli asked for pancakes. Luke burned the first batch. They laughed, really laughed, for the first time. They stood before the wall just after sunrise. The names were carved in stone, clean, measured, final. Thousands of them. A forest of grief that never stopped growing. Luke had been here before. Alone. But never like this. Eli held his hand, fingers laced through his like it was the most natural thing in the world. His small palm was warm despite the cold. "I thought it'd be bigger," he whispered. Luke knelt beside him. "It's not the size. It's what it holds." Eli traced one name slowly with a gloved finger. Then looked up. "Did you know any of them?" Luke nodded. "Too many." A long silence passed. Eli pulled something from his coat pocket, folded, careful. He opened it on the ground, weighing the corners with 4 small stones. It was a drawing. Crayon and pencil. A boy on one side. A soldier on the other. This time, the bridge wasn't broken or building. It was complete, shining with soft, golden lines. A flashlight in the boy's hand lit the path. Across the top, in child's handwriting. "I found him." Luke stared at the drawing until the world blurred. Eli looked up. "You said people leave drawings sometimes. To say they were here." "They do," Luke replied, voice raw. "It's their way of speaking without noise." "Then this is mine," Eli said, patting the paper gently. Luke didn't move. Didn't breathe. He watched his son, rise and step back, hands tucked into his coat, scarf tucked around his neck like armor. "You don't have to be a hero anymore," Eli said. "You already found your way back." Luke knelt longer than he needed to. Pressed 2 fingers to the paper gently, like a blessing. Then he rose. Stood tall. Not with pride, but with presence. He placed a hand on Eli's shoulder. "You ready to go?" Eli nodded. "Can we get cocoa?" Luke smiled. "Always." As they walked away, the sun finally broke across the wall, thin light stretching down the names, across the stones, onto the single drawing left behind. A boy. A soldier. A bridge rebuilt. And a message not for the dead, but for the living. "I found him." A year passed like breath on a window, slow to appear, quicker to vanish. The apartment was smaller now, tucked behind a grocery store and a laundromat, where the windows fogged up in winter and the radiator made a sound like quiet ticking. But inside, it felt full. Not with things. With moments. Eli's drawings lined the fridge, homes with wide doors, bridges with no cracks, a soldier always standing close by. Luke kept a photo on the nightstand. Not of war. Not of ceremony. Just a picture Rachel had taken on the first weekend Eli stayed over, the boy asleep on his chest, red scarf knotted loosely in his hand. Some nights, Luke would still wake up afraid the boy had disappeared. That the years had folded back in on themselves. That he'd missed it all again. But every time he looked toward the second bedroom, the door was cracked open just enough. And that was enough. Eli had kept the flashlight, the original one. It still worked, though the beam was weaker now. He placed it in the window every night out of habit. A quiet ritual. A memory turned into routine. Luke asked him once, "Why do you still do that?" Eli had shrugged. "I don't know. Just feels right." But tonight, the window was dark. Luke noticed it as he poured water for the kettle. The flashlight usually blinked once before bedtime, Eli's unspoken "good night" to the outside world. He waited. Nothing. He walked to the boy's room and peeked in. Eli was curled up under the blanket, reading. No light in the window. Luke knocked softly. "No flashlight tonight?" Eli looked up. "I forgot." Luke smiled gently. "You never forget." Eli hesitated, then sat up in bed. "It's because I'm not waiting anymore." Luke blinked. "Waiting? For you." The words landed like snowfall. Quiet. Complete. Luke walked over, sat on the edge of the bed. "You sure?" Eli nodded. You're here now. I don't need the light to find you. They didn't speak for a moment. Just sat there, the room dim, soft, real. Luke leaned down, kissed Eli's forehead, and stood. At the door, the boy's voice stopped him. You know what I was thinking? Eli said. What? I might redraw that bridge again. Luke smiled. Add anything new? Yeah, Eli said. This time, I'll put the house at the end. Luke's chest tightened. Good night, Dad. That word, unforced, unprompted, settled like warmth in his bones. Good night, son. He closed the door gently. Walked back to the living room. The window was still dark. But for the first time, it didn't feel empty. And as he turned off the lamp, a single thought followed him into sleep. This time, I stayed.